Hey guys, Midlife Maestro here, and wow, it's hard to contain my enthusiasm for the game that I'm about to review. I had a blast playing it. The characters have so much personality, they made me laugh a lot. It has an intelligent story, it has unique gameplay, and it looks and sounds great. I'm talking about BIOMORPH. BIOMORPH was developed and published by Lucid Dreams Studio and released on Steam on April 5th, 2024. Release on consoles is planned for later this year. It's a 2D side-scroller Metroidvania, some would say with Souls-like elements. This little guy here is Harlow. When you first meet him, he's escaped some kind of stasis field. He doesn't remember anything. He doesn't know how he got there or what happened before that. Turns out, some kind of alien force has landed on his planet of Ilios, and it's draining it of all its resources. He and his friend Cleo are fighting the good fight when somehow they're both trapped in these stasis fields. And for whatever reason, Harlow escapes, but Cleo does not. Well, Harlow is such a good hero. He doesn't remember a lot, but he's still going to fight his way through Ilios to solve the mystery of who he is, and above all, how to save Cleo. Now, did I mention the game's funny? There are so many goofy dad jokes that kept me cackling. I'd go from cussing because I was screwing something up, cussing while messing up is kind of my thing, to laughing my head off. Harlow has these disembodied arms called Eni and Zeki, which I call his fists, because he's so tough he's named his fists. They roast each other and they give Harlow advice. The three of them do the Metroidvania thing and they explore and clear rooms and find upgrades and abilities, and you know the drill. So, you know how Metroidvanias usually have similar abilities? The abilities here are a little different, but in a good way. There's no double jump, but there is a means of traversal that's even better. And the coolest thing about Harlow, except for his great personality and general awesomeness, is that he can morph into enemies that he's defeated and take on their abilities. This isn't just some cheap trick. You have to do this to progress in the game. Morphing a certain number of times will give you the abilities permanently, then morphing a certain amount of time past that will upgrade them. And look, I know this has been done before, but here it still feels fresh to me. Weapons are called chips. You get chips by exploring. Some you can buy from vendors, and you'll also get them after defeating certain enemies. You can upgrade these chips throughout the game. There are both melee and ranged abilities. Most of them have a cooldown period, or there's a maximum number of times you can use them before resting at a checkpoint. And speaking of checkpoints, they are everywhere. You have limited ability to upgrade each checkpoint for fast travel. Didn't really get in the way for me. Whenever I was out of the item needed, I'd come across it soon afterward. And related to checkpoints, the map. It is nicely designed. It's pretty big, and it's interconnected. Completed rooms change colors, so you know that you've discovered all its secrets. This game allows you to place markers on the map. That's nice for someone like me whose memory isn't the greatest. And speaking of memory, you also find items called mementos. They provide various buffs and protections, and they can be upgraded too. These buffs and protections are pretty much the same as in any other game, like gaining heals when you take damage. So how do you figure out what's going on in this world, on this planet, Ilios? You get the story in bits and pieces through exploring and speaking with NPCs. Harlow has moments where his memory is coming back to him, and you get a cutscene from his past. These are extended scenes where you're running around with Cleo, talking about your goals and the reasons why you're fighting. Now let's pivot to music and sound. If music and sound are important to you, you won't be disappointed. The music is fantastic. Sound design is superb. There's an NPC that will give you records that you can play in the hub. William Goff and Lawrence Manning were the composers, and they deserve more recognition. The music is sometimes quiet and whimsical, and at other times it's big and symphonic. I reached out to Lucid Dreams to find out if they hired musicians. I was a little nervous asking, but they were so nice about it. They didn't hire musicians, and this makes me think that the piano that you hear is probably played by one of the composers, while the symphonic type of music is synthesized. As an orchestra fan, it sounded realistic. Now let's talk about graphics. The game looks good. There's a lot of black and gray, but there are vibrant colors here and there that draw you in. The biomes are distinct from one another, and they all have their own feel. At first, the hub seems pretty drab, but you get blueprints that let you build a house for Harlow and set up sites to make the hub feel more welcoming, like an awesome aquarium. I reached out to the devs on Discord about the graphics too, and again, they were super nice. They told me that the game was hand-drawn, and some of the animations were drawn frame by frame, like at checkpoints where you fast travel. Oh, and you can decorate Harlow's house, and you can use his computer to check your completion of discoveries and whatnot. Oh, and this reminds me, cats. You get to save all the cats. Harlow's neighbor is a crazy cat lady, and she gives you rewards every time you send one back to her. And you know there's an achievement for finding all of them. But they're not called cats, they're called Scargato, but they're cats. Yo, Midlife, how's the gameplay? I know, calm down. Controls are tight and smooth. There's great enemy variety in how they look, and there's enemy variety in how they move, and there's variety in their abilities when you morph into them. It's not always obvious how you're going to use the abilities to traverse and progress the game in general, which to me adds to the fun. Weapons or chips have a good variety, and they allow for multiple playstyles. Boss fights are really entertaining, but they might be a bit easy for some players. I counted 14 of them. I usually didn't beat a boss in the first go, so to me that's challenging enough. I'm glad that they weren't too challenging because I don't like banging my head against the wall to beat a boss, and then that gets in the way of exploring. And let's face it, exploring is a big part of the charm of Metroidvanias. Right? Right. And my final points are about value and replayability. It's only $20 on Steam at the time of this review. Actually, I think it's slightly discounted today. The price is right, but I don't think there are options for challenges after you finish the main story, except for obtaining all the achievements. And like most Metroidvanias, there's no New Game Plus. So overall, I like to give a numerical score because I want to be able to defend my assessment. It's based on 5 categories, and I give a maximum of 2 points for each. Add them together, and you get a score out of 10, which I call the Maestro mark. Narrative, 2 points. It's a compelling story with lots of lore to discover throughout the game. Gameplay and mechanics, 2 points. Controls are tight, and the morphing ability is super fun. Graphics, 2 points. The game looks good. The hand-drawn elements are really impressive. Music and sound, 2. I love the music, and the sound engineering was on point. Value and replayability, 1. It's at a good price point, but there aren't many options for replayability. And this gives us a score of 9, which means I think you'll love it. So far, this is the second highest score I've given in 2024, see Prince of Persia, and one of the 3 that scored an 8 or higher. So I'm not some fanboy. I use a scoring system so that I'm as objective as possible. I did 100% the game, so I do feel like I played it enough to really get to know it. And you know what? You need to play it too, dummies. I'm really perplexed as to why this game isn't more popular. When it comes out on consoles, and look out for that again at the end of this year, please play it. You won't regret it. And even if you don't like it as much as I did, it's still a game that I believe you'll enjoy. So what do you think? Have you played the game? Which parts did I get right and which did I get wrong? Let me know in the comments, and please subscribe. See you around.